is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
The global beauty industry is growing faster than ever before. Today, the global market is valued at an estimated $532 billion and counting, according to recent reports. In Africa, skin lightening products are a big part of this industry, with analysts putting skin lightening market at $10 billion and is projected to hit the $23 billion mark by 2020. Some cities surveyed in Africa have registered up to 77% use of skin lighteners. So, what is it that is making the skin lightening industry grow at such a rapid pace? And is the very idea of black being beautiful being challenged with this growing phenomenon? I am Liu Feifei. Welcome to Talk Africa. Well, to get an idea of how and why skin bleaching and lightening is an increasing practice in Africa, we sampled views from people in various cities across the continent. Let's take a listen and see what they had to say.
People for so long have wanted to identify with the white skin, the light skin, because for so many years that has been a representation of power, development, authority, beauty. And so people want to be identified in that kind of way. It's just sad that that confidence and esteem is founded on what has been sold to us by the media about what is good and what is bad.
Précisément pour nous les Congolais, en Afrique, mais précisément pour nous les Congolais.
We Congolese like looking good. I bleach because the sun darkens my skin during the dry season. Unfortunately, some of those lightening creams contain hydroquinone, which causes cancer.
I think in one way or another, social media is pushing these products to be sold out in our country.
I personally feel people use skin lightening products because of a low self-esteem.
With me today is a panel of experts to help us explore the intricacies on the subject of beauty and identity. John Knowlton is in Johannesburg, South Africa. He is a founding member and managing director of Cosmetic Solutions. Enye Jaibor is an entrepreneur in Lagos, Nigeria, and she's the founder of a skincare product startup called Body Secrets. And joining me in the studio is Kin Oruku, a sociologist and lecturer at the University of Nairobi. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being a part of this discussion. Now, in recent years, there's been a tremendous uptick in Africa with a beauty trend called skin bleaching, also known as skin whitening or skin lightening. And what is really counterintuitive is that many health experts have come out and said that this practice is harmful to your health, sometimes causing cancer and in the rare case causing even death. So let's start our discussion on African beauty and identity with the question of why. Why are African women and even increasingly African men bleaching their skin at such a tremendous cost? Enye, I believe you've gone through this process yourself. Can you share with us why you did that?
Why Africans bleach their skin is a question that we definitely do not talk about it. It starts from when we're young. It starts from us being our siblings, when our aunties will say, this person is lighter than the other. It starts in our schools where a lighter picture is described as beautiful and a darker picture is described as ugly. It starts with the African tradition that looks at that anything that looks black is evil. It starts with a lot of things, especially media, our environment, ourselves. It starts with ourselves, the way we describe black. I mean, the definition of black is the absorption of light. So, I mean, we already have that negative thoughts when it comes to black African skin, that you only look better when you're lighter, or you look beautiful when you're lighter, which is very wrong. So why we bleach our skin is starting from the inception, starting from us as kids, as children, growing up and seeing how the environment, how the media, how everything has, you know, when they're trying to describe beautiful, they always put a lighter picture or a lighter person as beautiful. It starts from that, and now it's something that everybody does now, and they call it normal, but it's not.
Now, Ken, from a sociological and historical perspective, do you think that it actually starts with the African people, or does it go even more back with the recent trends that people are trying to follow to the maybe colonial era?
Yeah, most of these things happened when the white person came into Africa. And you know, the Africans were a cocooned society, we were doing our thing, everything was going right. And then the Muzungu, the white person, came and said, hey, this is what we need you to follow, this is the books we need you to read, this is the language we need you to speak. When that happened, people started having a wider perspective of life and looking at, you know, what is beyond Africa. And so once you get exposed to what is beyond Africa, you start appreciating what is there instead of what is here. Before colonialism, Africans were okay in their skin, you know? And then when the colonialists came, they said, hey, we need to teach you about Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ and all the angels and everybody was white. Yeah, and everything black was everything dark, everything evil, like she says. So the Africans started having doubts about their self-concept, and that created a problem. So it's a historical evolution that has happened to us over the years, and then eventually today we are talking about just a trend. A lot of people who bleach their skin don't know why they're doing it. They're doing it because everybody else is doing it. So it's just a form of copycat behavior, because you see somebody else doing it, they look good, and you think, why not? I can also try it out. But otherwise, originally, it was the evolution away from dark, away from black, and to something lighter, something more acceptable.
And we want to come back and unpack this whole idea of African beauty and African identity. But John, over to you in South Africa. You're a chemist. Can you tell us about the dangers of this prevalent practice of bleaching the skin?
Yes, of course. It's really quite an interesting and horrific topic. I think that the types of products on the market today fall in two different categories. There's the so-called legal type, and they're not widely used by African women. And then there's the illegal type, which are widely used. For example, in Nigeria, or at least in Nigeria, the usage is about 77% of women use skin lightening products. In South Africa, about 27% of people use skin lightening products. And the average for the continent of Africa is about 40% of African women are trying to lighten their skin. Now, the illegal products are based on two principal ingredients. One is mercury, which is less often found, but the one that's found most of all is a substance called hydroquinone, which is a very dangerous chemical. It can cause burns, it can cause scarring. It results in a condition ultimately called ochronosis, and ochronosis is a permanent scarring of the skin due to using skin lightening products with this material hydroquinone in it. So not only is it ubiquitous, but widely used by many African women and men, of course, as well now, but it's a very dangerous practice to do so, and it's really something that should not be allowed, and in fact in some countries it's not allowed. But that doesn't stop people using these products.
But even the East African Legislative Assembly is trying to ban it. But in fact, as I said earlier, the trend continues on an uptick. So Inie, you've actually experimented. Can you tell us what happened with that process?
Well, I used to be way lighter, and I thought that was beautiful. I mean, it started with going to a cosmetic store and just buying a product that just has lightening or brightening on it, and I felt that, oh, it's just going to tone my skin. So over time I started using this product, and I was getting lighter, and I was obviously getting so light that my family could not recognize me. And for me, I thought that it was beauty. I thought that I was, you know, becoming beautiful. So I kept on using it until it started giving me a lot of skin issues, skin burn, stretch marks and lots more. I mean, I couldn't go out to the sun because when I'm exposed to the sun, I get like skin irritation and sunburn. So for me, the experience was, it took me to experience it to understand that it is not good for you. But I feel like we Africans, we lack information. If we're well informed about our skin and we take it from when we are like from the childhood, like from when we are kids, and we take it that we need to start taking care of our skin. We need to know that we are beautiful, we are black, and we are beautiful, and it's our identity. We will not be using all this chemical-based products.
Kian, what she said is really interesting in the sense that her family could barely recognize her at that point. So that brings us to another interesting topic, which is how this Eurocentric concept of beauty, having lighter skin is more beautiful. How has that impacted African beauty and African identity, more importantly?
Yeah, you know, the girl in Africa, when she's growing up, she is socialized to believe that she can get better. And in trying to get better, she accentuates her skin, she tries all sorts of things, you know, the hair, the skin color, her body figure, everything that would make her more appealing. The question usually we ask is appealing to who? And when the African girl responds to this beauty concept that she sees in the magazines and in the books and everything, she's actually regenerating herself, trying to recreate herself. Now, the problem is there's a standard. What standard do we use to measure the beauty? And that standard is set by who? The question we keep asking is that a lot of times they see what's going on out there and then they want to compare and be like those people they see in the magazines. Yeah.
Well, in fact, it's very interesting because the famous movie actress now, Lupita Nyong'o, she was taking photos for the cover of a European magazine, and she went with her natural hair. And when the magazine hit the newsstands, it turned out that her hair had been smoothed out. She was very upset and she demanded a public apology, which she received. But it's interesting, and I want to pose this question to John, because you are the president of the Society of Cosmetic Chemists, not only in South Africa, but also in England, I believe. Who are these people, as Ken was saying, that is dictating what African beauty and should be?
No, I don't think it's that way at all. I don't think the Western influence is very big at all, because most of the products, or many of the products that you see in Africa, are supplied from within Africa. They're not supplied from overseas companies. So the big multinational names, for example, that would make skin brightening products, they're not responsible for the high volumes of illegal products in Africa. If you look at another influence, what's actually caused the use of these products, I think there's a lot of aspirational value here in the sense that, and to come back to what was being said earlier on, that the belief amongst African women that lighter skin is going to make them appear to be more successful, more attractive. And I think that's, that example you gave of the magazine is a good example of where you're trying to westernize the image. But I don't think it's the companies in the West that are trying to force this issue. I think there's a belief within the African continent that that lighter skin is better. I would have expected it to have changed by now, but you know, sadly, these products are available, and they know there's a market there. And probably Nigeria is the worst offender when it comes to producing illegal skin lightening products of the type that I mentioned earlier on, because they're making more than any other country in the world. So yes, there's some influence from the West, but I think a lot of it is generated from within Africa, and it's really all about making money from people who are being exploited, believing that if they do have their skins lighter, they're going to be more successful, or seem to be more successful and more affluent in society. And I think that's the driving force.
Would you agree with that, Ken? You're laughing. Do you agree?
I kind of am tempted to side with him. The only problem here is, I think something else he's probably trying to bring out is that some of these things are localized. You know, the men, for example, seem to set standards for the women they want to be with. And so therefore the black woman tries to aspire to that standard. And that man could be Kenyan, that man could be Nigerian, but he's not from out there. It's just that sometimes he watches these things on TV, he watches them in the movies, and he thinks, this is what I need. And so the African girl is trying to appease the man in looking more beautiful than she thinks she already is. And the problem is that men are very visual in terms of being relationship partners with the women. So what standard is set, then they say, oh, I'm looking for a woman like this. And then the next one tells the next one, and the next one tells the next one, and it becomes a social concept. So sometimes the younger children we are bringing up, they're looking at these girls on Instagram, on Facebook, and all these things and saying, this is how it is. So then they also want to straighten their hair and put those weaves and everything, not because anybody has taught them, but because they're learning that that is the concept of beauty.
And on that note, it's time for us to take a short break. Don't go away. We'll be back with our special panel of experts to talk more about African beauty and identity.
Life moves pretty fast. Ideas move at the speed of sound. Technology moves at the speed of light. If you don't filter out the noise, you might miss the details. We pay attention to the details because they matter, showing you a different perspective. See the difference.
Black is beautiful, but people get tempted. They look online and see light-skinned girls looking nice, well-dressed, her color looking good, but they don't know she might not be using those products she is only modeling.
Of course, yes, we're Africans. It's our nature, we're blacks, and black is beautiful. So yeah, it's considered very much beautiful. After all, I'm dark, I'm not ugly, am I?
I think everyone is not satisfied with how they look. Foreigners like how Egyptians look. It's different to them and they like that. They wish to have the darker skin and strong features. They think they are pale, and we get overwhelmed when an Egyptian is blonde and everyone wants to marry her. They too are the same.
Welcome back to Talk Africa. John Knowlton is standing by in Johannesburg. Enye Jaibor is in Lagos, and Ken Oruku is with me in the studio. John, Ken had mentioned earlier that there's a reverse trend, right? It's not just Africans emulating some European standards of beauty, but there are a lot of Europeans and indeed Americans who are trying to do things to emulate African beauty. For example, I can name the lip injections. Even they're having hip surgeries. And one of the most prevalent things that people with white skin complexion like to do is tanning themselves. Again, to the point where they get skin cancer and other harmful side effects. What do you make of this reverse trend?
Well, I think what's interesting is that no matter where people are from around the world, they don't seem to be happy with what they have given to them by nature. So we have the phenomenon of African skins wanting to look lighter. We've got sometimes Caucasian skins wanting to look darker. As you say, lip plumping, volumization, all these types of things. I think it almost seems to be a quest for something you don't have. And I think one thing that was mentioned a little bit earlier, and I think it's really quite important when it comes to what's driving this behavior, and I was very interested to hear what the professor was saying, is the media. The media is what really glamorizes all of the trends that we see. So for example, I mean, you gave the example of a magazine earlier on with the front cover, but if you look at TV advertising, for example, in South Africa, bearing in mind that around 87, 88% of the population have black skins, you'll find a lot of the advertising on TV even if it uses a black person on TV, their skin tends to glow. And this is another reason why I think we're seeing this almost innate desire to look brighter. Now, I think one point that hasn't been discussed, and I think it's extremely important, is the difference between bleaching the skin and lightening the skin. Bleaching the skin literally means you're trying to take away the color that you were given when you were born, whereas with lightening, what you're trying to do more properly is to even the tone of the skin. Unfortunately, a lot of the products out there on the marketplace, the illegal ones, even if they're aimed at evening the tone of the skin, they are bleaching the skin, and as soon as the skin gets bleached, then you do have a dangerous situation because of the presence of the chemical hydroquinone. So I think that you know, there are trends coming from the West in that sense, but I think really for me, and it would be interesting to hear from the professor, we don't seem to be, as human beings, we don't seem to be happy with what we're given. We want to try and change something to emulate something else, which is a standard generated by often the media.
Professor, your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, the human behavior is determined by aspiration. That's exactly what, you know, he's alluding to, that every time you're somewhere in life, you want to be at the next place. And that's the same thing with your economic standards, your job, your career, your relationships. You always think it's better out there. And sometimes you're relating with someone, and when you see someone else looking happy, you think, oh, they're happier than me. So you want to try and do what they're doing, which is doesn't suit you. And that's exactly the same thing with our beauty standards. Everybody keeps setting a standard, and sometimes it's just a supermodel. Sometimes it's just somebody who, by mistake, looked in a certain way, and then everybody thinks, that's not so bad. So aspiration then guides our actions, and we keep thinking that I want to be the next thing that I'm not. Yeah, and every time you're not comfortable in your skin, you will try and do something about it if you can afford it. If you can't, then you'll go the black route, you know, the black market route, and use something cheaper, which would be harmful to your health. But before we get off that topic, the only thing to remember is that people try to conform. Right from the time you're born, your father, your mother will teach you to try and conform to the standards. Now, the standards, once you grow up, are set by other people. That's not your parents, it's not your relatives. They're now set out there where you go to work, where you watch TV, and then you're thinking, this is what suits me, I need to try this. The minute you try it, everybody else wants to try it. And that's why advertisers are very careful. You know, they look for the influencers, like they call them, people who've got a lot of social impact. Then they'll use that person to promote a product, and everybody says, let me try this.
Now, I think that's a really important distinction that he made between legal and illegal products, which most likely are going to cause more harm to your skin. And the other aspect, though, that I didn't quite agree with was that it's the media driving this. In fact, I think the cosmetics industry, which statistics show that as of 2017, it's worth more than $500 billion worldwide. And in fact, in the next few years, by 2025, it's going to be worth more than $800 billion worldwide. That's a very high compounded annual growth rate of about 7 or 8%. And then in sub-Saharan Africa, it's worth about 11 billion today and growing even faster than the global trends. So I guess, Inye, maybe we come to you, because I know you are trying to develop your own skincare company, a homegrown company for Africans. What are your thoughts about this trend?
Well, for me, I manufacture skincare products, so I know, like, we have lightening products for light skin individuals, and then we have products that will glow and enhance your skin. Even the products that we have for lightening, dark skin consumers, they will always want to buy that one. I mean, we always go out of stock with the lightening product than the glowing or enhancing product, because they feel when they're lighter, they're beautiful, or when they're lighter, it's attractive, it is better. And that is not what we're trying to portray. We're trying to make products for African skin, products to glow your African skin, to make you look beautiful in your dark skin. And so, for me, I also would say media is what they see, is what you see you want to be like. The media plays a long role. The media, and for the fact that we are not informed, lack of information has made a lot of people use things on their skin that they're not supposed to use. I mean, they're not informed of they're not informed how harmful it is. They're not informed if this is even for them, if it is suitable for them. Because there's some products that you use on your skin that is not for your skin type or for your skin tone. Lack of information has made everything even worse. and have even made the trend worse.
We have just time for one more question, and I'll pose it to each one of you, maybe starting with you, John. As we can see, there's been kind of an evolution of the concept of beauty in Africa and identity. Going forward, from your own perspective, what do you think is going to dictate the market in Africa? Is it going to be more towards the Black is beautiful, or is it going to be the ongoing dominance by Eurocentric and American-centric influences?
Well, I fear it's going to be the latter, unfortunately. I wish it wasn't that way, because I think that it's about time that the Black is beautiful was meaningful. I think part of the reason for that, of course, is that the African continent is not a major player in the beauty industry. And there are very few really, really big African homegrown skincare companies. And therefore, by definition, anything that happens in the skincare market is driven by companies in the West. I think the sad thing for me is that the Western companies, and some of those you mentioned, I don't think they really understand what the real need in Africa is, because they see it from the point of view of outsiders. They have no idea. So, for example, I've got a couple of international clients that are based in America and the UK, and when they come to South Africa and they see the potential here for, never mind skin lightening, let's take that off the table, for actually producing skincare products that are beneficial for Black African skin, without any attempt at all to lighten the skin, because Black skin is beautiful. And I think someone said earlier on, maybe the professor, I think we need to change the dialogue. We need to change the conversations that we have, because we always gravitate back towards these influences, and whether it's the social media, whether it's because of conformity, whether it's because we see something somewhere, unfortunately it always comes back to skin lightening again. And I think what needs to happen with these influencers from overseas, they need to understand the African marketplace better and start producing skincare that's designed to work on Black skin and keep it black rather than making it lighter.
Inie, over to you. What are your closing thoughts?
Well, I believe that if mothers do not start telling their children to embrace their skin tone, to embrace their skin tone, to love their skin, to own their skin tone, dangerous skin bleaching will not stop. It has to start with mothers telling their children to affirm, to say to themselves that their skin is beautiful. It has to start with our schools. We even have to have a course for, if we can have a self-development course for children, the way we teach about puberty, the way we teach about so many things, health, we should also teach about the skin, because it's very important. And in order to build your self-confidence and to build yourself, you need to be able to embrace who you are. And
thank you very much. Very quickly, Ken, your final thoughts.
When it comes to all this, I think women need to change their perspective and look at beauty as a natural endowment, not an asset. And the blame falls squarely on the men who set those standards for them, because women try to aspire to be appealing to those men. And that's where they go wrong, because they're trying to make themselves available to the standard that the men set. And the men are the ones who are captaining the industry and driving all this desire in them to do that.
Well, that's a great note to end this edition of Talk Africa. We'd like to thank our guests, starting with our studio guest, Ken Oruku, who's a sociologist and lecturer at the University of Nairobi. We also like to thank Inie Jaibor, who's the founder of Body Secrets, which is a skincare and beauty startup company in Nigeria. And also a big thank you to John Knowlton, who is the founder and managing director of Cosmetic Solutions in South Africa. We'd like to hear your thoughts on this subject. Our social media handles on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube are on your screen right now, as well as the CGTN Africa website, where you can watch this and previous episodes of Talk Africa. Do keep the conversation going, and remember to tune in again next week for more of Talk Africa. From me, Liu Feifei, thank you and goodbye.